Hello tankers and tankettes, and welcome to another video in the What Tank series. These are intended to give a bit more information on certain aspects of the game, not so much looking at specific tanks, but giving a kind of overview of different areas, try and provide information towards some of the more commonly asked questions. The last one I looked at the two Soviet heavy lines. This one I'm going to look at premium tanks because another commonly asked question I find on the forums is, what premium tank is the best? And I'm not going to answer that because there isn't really an answer to that question, but hopefully this video will give you some information on the correct, answer. Correct question to ask, which is what premium tank is the best for me. First off, a little definition. A premium tank is obviously a tank you buy for money, but I think a lot of people get confused and think that means it's therefore better than other tanks for its tier. And I especially see this with tier 8 tanks. People with not that many battles, they jump in and buy a tier 8 tank and then actually really struggle to be any good in it because they simply, they don't have the experience, especially not for the high tier matches that they end up in. I immediately want to disabuse that notion that premium tanks are not better as a general rule than the other tanks of their tier. It's not pay to win by any means. Wargaming has deliberately steered away from that kind of idea, and it's one of the reasons I like the game. You cannot buy your way towards victory. There is no replacement for actually, learning how to play, basically. Now, what a premium tank does give you, there are advantages to buying them, otherwise there would be no point in buying them, especially not with actual money. There are two kind of big pros. One is that they can be used as a crew trainer, and what you can do is you can put a regular tank crew in a premium tank and there is no penalty. If you do this between two regular tanks, you have a very significant penalty to your crew skill, and skills and perks basically become unusable. If you do this with a premium tank, if you put a regular crew in a premium tank, there is no penalty whatsoever. I will hasten to add, sometimes people ask this, if you have a crew that you've trained for a premium tank, which you can do, and this is the only tank where that's the case for me, you cannot put this crew in a regular tank without the normal penalty applying. There's no such thing as a premium crew, basically. It only goes one way. Obviously, some are going to be more useful for this than others. Some have a limited number of slots. If you're, wanting to use a tank as a crew trainer, always bear in mind, does it have enough slots for what I want to use it for? And some of them will have enough, others you might end up only being able to train 3/4 of a crew, for instance. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The other reason to buy a premium tank is that they make more money than normal tanks of their tier, and usually it's a combination of they've got a better credit gain bonus, they've sometimes got particularly cheap ammo, and sometimes the repair cost is less. That kind of combination of things is, some of them are very good credit earners, some of them less so because you need to use more premium ammo for them. Some tanks are better credit earners than others, and having said what I did about tier 8 tanks, yes, the tier 8s are better credit earners, but on the whole, you shouldn't ever really buy a tier 8 premium as your first premium unless you've played the game up to maybe tier 6 or tier 7 and you have a lot better idea of actually how to play. Now, that's the advantages. Premium tanks, they have some disadvantages as well. As I've said, you buy this thing and you have it available right away to actually use as an elated vehicle because you only get one set of modules, and that's great because you don't have to research anything, but it means there's no possibility of upgrade. You get what you get basically. This is what you pay for, and some have pretty terrible guns, especially at the low tiers. And there's usually some flaw. There's no, with a possible exception of this thing, there's usually no, premium that's a really good all-rounder. And like I said, this is possibly the only exception. Usually, they compensate this to some extent by giving you a limited matchmaking. That's not the case with this one, but KV5, for instance, IS6, Churchill 6, and a lot of these have got limited matchmaking. Some of them don't. Some of them just get normal matchmaking. And you might still have a not very good gun for your tier, so that's something to be aware of. And you should always check on the wiki and guides for that kind of thing, because it's very useful to know. The other disadvantage is, like I've said, some of them got very weak guns and you're very reliant on premium ammo, so they're not that good as money makers, especially at the lower tiers. And possibly the most significant disadvantage is the low tiers up to about tier 5. You can buy, you buy the cheapest gold package, you can buy a tier 5, you can buy anything that's below tier 5. Once you get to tier 6, costs just about doubles, tier 7 doubles again, tier 8 it doubles again. And the most expensive ones, like the Lerva for instance, and I think the T34 is slightly cheaper. They're not cheap in real money terms. These are not, these are not little purchases. And bear in mind, once you've bought a premium tank, that's it. You can sell it in your garage, but you don't get the gold back. You only get a credit sum. So you have to really consider when you buy one of these things, because you're not just going to get. It's not like you're just going to get refunded the gold if you decide you don't like it. And I see this especially with people jumping in like a couple hundred battles. Even they see a tier 8 and they go, "Ooh, I'll just buy a top tier tank," expecting it to be, better, and it's not. It's got the same flaws that any other premium at any other tier has got. And once they've got it, and they've spent a significant amount of actual money on this thing, and you're not going to get that back. So I would never recommend someone just jumps right to the top, basically. Always have a careful think about your needs, how much you're willing to spend, and bear in mind, once you've spent the actual money, you're not going to get a refund. That's it. You've spent it. So yeah, I'll take a quick look at the individual tiers. I won't look at individual tanks too much. Up to tier 4 you get premiums from tier 2 to tier 4. I think that's the only tier 2 premiums, T2 light. And I should also note, you'll sometimes see tanks driving around where or you might see on the wiki, there are some premiums you can't buy anymore. There are also some tanks that are classified as gift tanks. Those aren't premiums, or prize tanks as well, which are a new thing. Premiums generally you can buy, or you have been able to buy them at some point. They have the advantages of XP and credit income, as I've said. Generally, gift tanks and prize tanks won't have that. So yeah, low tiers, they're not much use as crew trainers just because you're at low tiers and you're not getting the massive amounts of XP from these battles. You get a decent credit gain for the tier, but on the whole, they're not massively good earners. Tier 5 is probably the maximum tier, I would say. If you're looking at getting a premium for the first time, I would say look at tier 5s. Don't go beyond that just yet. There are some good machines at tier 5. There are the Churchill 3 I will point out in particular because that gets the best crew XP multiplier in the entire game. That's a very good premium crew trainer, and it's a decent, cash grinder as well because the ammo is very cheap on that tank. But yeah, you have to think about what lines you want to grind a crew on, and like I said, there are some good premiums to have at tier 5. And it's if you're going to make an investment, you can still buy one of those with the cheapest package. I don't know why I'm looking at the Chinese tree. They don't have any premiums you can buy at the moment. Yeah, so I would say if you're looking at any one of these things, that's your maximum limit. Don't jump to tier 8 immediately because you will suck and you won't have much fun, and people in your team will cuss at you because you're sucking and not contributing, basically. So I would say don't, that's a no-no. Don't go for those just yet. Tier 6 and Tier 7, there are a couple of premiums at these tiers, not many. I think they're mostly tank destroyers, in fact. 2 on the Soviet line, there's 1 on the British line, there's 1 on the German line, and there's 2 mediums on the German line as well. And none on the French line. So yeah, there's some of those are decent. They're okay money earners, and yeah, they might be worth looking at if you're willing to spend a bit more. And especially in the case of the German line, you've actually got 3 premium mediums. So there's it's possible to stack up, and if you have 1 crew in 3 mediums, or well, 3 premium tanks rather, which is basically what I do with my I've got 1 Soviet heavy crew that I showed them in a previous video. They have approaching 5 crew skills after not that many battles, and that's because I've basically been doing daily doubles in 4 tanks, and that really adds up, especially when you've got 3 of those for being essentially elited vehicles. So all the XP gained is going into the crew. That's, bear that consideration in mind, and you can do that with the Germans. You can't do that with any other line anymore. I can do it with the Soviets because I bought KB5 before it was before they removed it from the gift shop. Even me speak good English, you guys, but you knew that already. But it's still possible to do that with the German mediums, and there's a couple of lines where you've got 2, so you've got 2 tank destroyers on the German tree, you've got 2 on the Soviet tree. I think the Soviets are getting a medium at some point soon, so you'll be able to have 2 mediums on the Soviet tree as well. So bear in mind, that as well, that you can stack up these things. That's when that crew, that ability to put a regular crew in a medium becomes especially powerful. And to my mind, the credit gain is very nice, but that's one of the prime reasons for buying a premium is even just having an extra premium. You can double up your daily double on a crew. That's quite a nice XP bonus. So yeah, tier 8s though are the best money earners, and most of them, there's 2 that get regular matchmaking, and most get limited because they've got kind of weak guns for their tier. The two that don't are the T34 and the Löwe on the German tree. Yeah, they're really expensive, those things. I haven't got one yet. I may do at some point, but it won't be now because I'm poor. You can, to some extent, you can. I think once you get up to a certain point, you can seriously consider getting one of these heavies. But one of the high tier ones, I mean. But as I've said, there's no point to jumping that far ahead. You're not doing anybody any favors, least of all yourself. So, the one final note I will make is that there's never going to be higher tier premiums than tier 8. That's the maximum Wargaming have said they will do. The other note I will make is that the advantage of these things over a premium account, which is the other thing you can buy for real money, is once it's in your garage, it's always in your garage. Doesn't matter if it gets taken out the gift shop, as with this thing or this thing or this. You've always got it. It's always in your garage. The only, the number of times premiums have been changed, you can probably count on one hand. There is, as of 8.6, a change to the Super Pershing coming up. They're actually going to give you the option to refund, to sell this for the full gold price once they've made those changes. That is something they've never done before, simply because they've never made that kind of major change to a premium before. So once you've got one of these things, it's going to be fairly static. It's probably not going to change, and yes, it might get taken out the gift shop for various reasons, but some of these, this thing, the Type 59 for instance, is another one. It's still available sometimes as a prize in various contests, so it's not impossible to get them once they're out of the gift shop, but obviously it's a lot harder. Are there any premiums I would particularly avoid? Not that many. The only one I would say off the top of my head that you should probably not really ever get is the Valentine 2. I got one when it was extremely cheap for 300 gold. I still felt a bit cheated at that price. The regular cost is 1,000 gold. Don't buy this thing. The gun is terrible. I mean, it's really awful, and it only has 3 crew slots, so it's not even good as a crew trainer. It's a bit of a novelty. Some premiums are the other. The main one people think of when they think novelty premium is the TOG 2. You can have fun in this thing, but you need to be in a platoon to really be effective. Not all premiums are equal. Some you can play up there with normal tanks. A lot of them, just because of their nature, the weaker guns or other flaws, you have to play them in a supporting role. And there's one or two where you can basically play them like a normal tank. As I've said, probably the most competent of them is the SU-122-44, which is probably the best all-rounder, just because it's got decent everything for its tier, and one of the best damage per minute values in the game. So in conclusion, if you're looking to spend some money on World of Tanks, a premium, up to tier 5, a premium is probably the best investment you can make, because you're not spending too much money. A premium account runs out. A premium is always going to be in your account, basically, and you can buy the cheapest gold package and you can get a premium up to tier 5. And if you decide it's you don't like World of Tanks, you've not wasted very much money. If you're going straight to a tier 8 premium, that's not advisable, because if you decide, you play it for a month, you decide this isn't the game for me, you've spent maybe like 40, 50 quid on something that you're not going to get back. That's just money thrown away. That pretty much concludes this video. If you would like to make a suggestion as to what I should do for my next What Tank video, you can make that in the comments. Bear in mind, in terms of looking at specific nations or lines and specific nations, I can only really look at them if I've researched sufficient vehicles myself to have a kind of a feel. There aren't that many lines where I've done that so far, so my options are a bit limited there. And also, it's just nice to hear your feedback anyway. And if you thought this was a decent video, you can always leave a like, or you could even subscribe to my channel. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.